For beginners learning programming, one unavoidable hurdle is object-oriented programming, also known as OOP. Of course, it doesn't mean sitting your significant other across from you and writing code together, but fully understanding OP can be just as hard as finding a partner in the first place. Friendly reminder, this video is meant to help you understand the concept of OOP. We won't go into detailed OOP syntax here. Python is used only for simple demonstrations. Syntax details will be covered in a later video. Object-oriented programming is usually discussed in contrast with procedural programming. Before learning about objects, most of what we do is procedural programming. Procedure is code that performs a specific task, which you can basically think of as a function. The core idea of procedural programming is to break a task into steps and execute them one by one. For example, if we write an ATM program that deposits 50 units of money and then withdraws 100, we simply write these steps in order and define deposit and withdraw functions. If we also need to record which ATM performed the transaction, which bank it belongs to, and the serial number of the banknotes, we can add all of these as function parameters. There is nothing inherently wrong with this approach, but if we need to track even more properties, like the ATM branch or the year a banknote was issued, the number of parameters quickly grows. On top of that, both ATMs and banknotes have IDs, and mixing these values together as parameters makes it harder to understand what each piece of data actually represents. As the program grows longer and more complex, the clarity of the code can suffer. But what if we use object-oriented programming instead? As the name suggests, instead of focusing on procedures, it centers around objects. In OOP, we don't start by asking whether the first step is depositing or withdrawing money. Instead, we model the real world and think about what objects exist, what properties they have, and what actions they can perform. For example, every ATM has its own properties, such as an ID, a bank, and a branch. We can extract these properties, define an ATM class, and then create objects from that class. The relationship between a class and an object is that a class is a template, and an object is an instance created from that class. More intuitively, you can think of a class as a blueprint used to build objects. The blueprint specifies that an ATM has properties like ID, bank, and branch. So whether it's ATM1 from a bank, S branch with ID 001, or ATM2 from B bank, N branch with ID 002, they are all ATM objects. Their IDs, banks, and branches are simply the attributes of each individual ATM object. In the same way, we can define a banknote class and create banknote objects from it. Now, these objects can be passed directly as parameters to the deposit and withdraw functions. You might say, hold on, there are fewer parameters now, but we've added a lot of code to define classes. Isn't that a bad trade-off, beyond reducing parameters? OP groups related properties together, which helps make program logic clearer. For example, although both ATMs and banknotes have IDs, using ATM1 ID versus banknote 1, ID makes it very clear which object the property belongs to. And if we need to print transaction logs, without objects we'd have to pass a large number of parameters around. With objects, we can directly access the attributes bound to them. Compared to passing around lots of raw data, this makes both the logic and data flow much clearer. Besides attributes, another thing that can be bound to an object is methods. Just like in the real world, objects have properties and can perform actions. Attributes represent what an object has, while methods represent what it can do. Let's again use procedural programming as a familiar example. To wash clothes, we write out the steps in order and define functions like loading, starting the machine, washing, and drying. Procedural programming is like an instruction manual that guides each step one by one. What about object-oriented programming? Here, both the person and the washing machine are objects involved in the task. The person can load clothes and start the machine, and the washing machine can wash and dry. These actions can be defined as methods in their respective classes. From another perspective, a method is simply a function defined inside a class, and an attribute is just a variable defined inside a class. After defining the classes, we can create objects from them and let each object execute its methods. Compared to procedural programming, which focuses directly on execution steps, OP first assigns responsibilities to objects and then describes how those objects interact. As one popular analogy puts it, Procedural programming is like a chronological record, while object-oriented programming is like a set of biographies. Objects not only bundle related attributes and methods together, but also help handle complex logic more elegantly. For example, if a washing machine method needs to know the machine's capacity, capacity can be set as an attribute when the object is created. Any method that needs this information can access it directly as an attribute, without requiring it to be passed in as a parameter. From these examples, we can see that when logic or information becomes complex, OP helps keep things clearer and more organized. In addition to these benefits, OP has 3 frequently mentioned features: encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism. Even though these words are familiar individually, their meanings aren't very intuitive when put together. But don't worry, we'll go through them one by one. Encapsulation means that the person who writes the class hides its internal implementation details, and users of the class interact with it only through its public interface. You can roughly think of an interface as the set of methods provided for use. For example, if someone has already written a washing machine class, you only need to know what methods it has, what they do, and how to use them. You don't need to know how those methods are implemented internally. This mirrors the real world. When we use a washing machine, we just press buttons on the control panel. We don't need to understand how it works internally or examine its circuitry. Encapsulation reduces the mental effort spent on unnecessary details. Inheritance means that OP allows classes to be organized into hierarchies. Just like in real life, where a son inherits from his father and the father from his grandfather, classes can have parent and child relationships. For example, both elementary school students and college students are students. They have student IDs, grades, and go to school. These shared characteristics would lead to a lot of duplicated code if handled separately. We can create a parent class called student, and let elementary student and college student inherit from it. This allows child classes to inherit attributes and methods from the parent class, reducing redundancy. Polymorphism means that the same interface can behave differently, depending on the object's actual class. For example, although both elementary students and college students do homework, the difficulty level is clearly different. So the homework method shouldn't be defined directly in the parent class, but instead implemented separately in each subclass. Imagine you're a parent with one college student and one elementary school student. When you tell both of them to do their homework, you don't need to worry about the difficulty. You just call the same homework method. Because they belong to different classes, each will execute a different version of the method. This is polymorphism. Without classes, you'd have to use if statements to check which type of child it is and manually call different functions. Polymorphism in OP lets you call the same method name without needing explicit type checks. That said, this doesn't mean OP is always better than procedural programming. If OOPROBE completely outperformed procedural programming in every way, procedural programming wouldn't still be widely used. Ultimately, the choice depends on the specific scenario and requirements. Oh, of course, if you're using a purely procedural language like C or a purely object-oriented language like Java, the choice is already made for you. By now, you should have a deeper understanding of this not-so-easy concept of object-oriented programming. If it still doesn't fully click, just save the video and watch it a few more times. It will eventually make sense. See you in the next video.